Stand by to launch FanStream Sports.
3, 2, 1. Let's start.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to FanStream Sports. Nothing but pure sports. This is the JP Show.
JP, it is so good to hear you back on the air.
Stand by. Now, here's JP.
All right, welcome in to a Thursday edition of the JP Peterson Show. I'm your host for today, Nick Geddes, riding solo as JP still enjoying himself out in New Orleans, so he should be back with everybody at the beginning of next week. So we'll carry on again solo without him today. But we got a lot to get into. We have reached the midpoint of the MLB season. Hard to believe we've already made it this far. 162-game season, and we've already gotten to the midway point. It's going to be over before you know it. And there were certainly times throughout this first half of the season where we were sort of been like, well, maybe we can't wait to get to the end of the season because the Rays were just not giving us much to go off of and not a lot of entertaining baseball going on. But give them credit. They have started to pick up their play of late, entering yesterday's game, that afternoon affair at the Trop. Had won 6 of 7. And even though they dropped the game yesterday to Seattle with a pretty, controversial move from Kevin Cash, which I'm going to get to in a second, they still win the series against a pretty good baseball team in the Mariners. So that drops them to 40-41 after they had just gotten back to 500. But today we're going to go over that first half. We're going to recap a little bit of what we saw and try to see if we can put some grades on this team at the midway point, who they are, what they are not, should they buy, should they sell, all those questions we're going to try to give answers today. So we'll start with that. Yesterday's game, as I said, a little afternoon affair, which, by the way, shout out to the pretty good crowd there yesterday on a Wednesday. I know those day games can sometimes be a little hit or miss when it comes to the crowd, but we had almost 19,000 people yesterday, so shout out to all the fans who showed up at the Trop yesterday. But kind of interesting game. The Rays got the lead, obviously, and Ryan Pepio was just pitching an absolute gem in that one. And 88 pitches, had only given up 1 hit in the game, and then he walks a batter there in that 6th inning. And Kevin Cash comes to get him, puts in Shawn Armstrong. And immediately it's like one of those things where if it works out, Kevin Cash has made the best decision ever. If it doesn't work out, then we're all just we're gonna burn the house down. And we can't believe Kevin Cash did that and gave away the game. I know obviously that's how it works. And I'm not going to overreact too much to it because if we've watched the Rays over the years and certainly under Kevin Cash, this is usually what he does with the pitchers. Now, do I think there should be some feel? And this is where the whole thing about modern day baseball sometimes gets attached to this. There's got to be some feel there, I think, though, for what was going on in that game. And Ryan Pepio, he had to walk the batter to start, but he had 8 strikeouts. He was only at 88 pitches. And yeah, I know he had been struggling. I even said going into the start, it feels like Ryan Pepio's hit a little bit of that wall. And so it was good to him to have a good outing under his belt like that. But I thought he had earned the right throughout that start yesterday to try to at least get through 6, especially knowing what the options were coming out of the bullpen at that time. You knew in the 6th inning, clearly, you're not getting Fairbanks, you're not getting Adam, you're not getting Clevenger. You were going to probably get a Shawn Armstrong or a Kevin Kelly or, my goodness, a Phil Maton. Can't be Davinsky anymore. Chris Davinsky's gone. And just don't think those arms have not proven to you all year that they're capable of coming into a spot like that in a 1-0 game, in a tight game like that, and getting it done. And Cal Raleigh comes up to the plate. Right before he comes up, they show the replay of the home run that he had the other night. And that guy's a really good catcher. And after moments later, after they showed the replay of the one he hit the other night, it's an absolute tank off Shawn Armstrong. 3-run home run, and at that point, it was pretty much game set right there. Now, we know the Rays typically like to come back late in the 8th and 9th inning, and they made it a little bit interesting yesterday, but yesterday was one of those days where they just did not have the bats rolling, and so the Shawn Armstrong 3-run home run given up to Cal Raleigh ends up biting them in the butt yesterday. So, again, I know there's a lot of people that came after Kevin Cash, and he's had his moments this year. There is no doubt about that, where, yes, is Kevin Cash one of the best managers in baseball? Of course. Has this been a banner year for him? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I like to think that he would probably say the same thing. So uh, the Rays end up dropping that game 5-2 and go one game under 500. But I think, though, when you look at the season as a whole, and we've been kind of saying this for the most part, like, they were very fortunate, the Rays were, that it wasn't as bad as it probably should have been, right? Like, I think the most the Rays got under 500 throughout the season was maybe 4 games, maybe 5 games, something like that. But they were playing at times where it looked like they should have been 10 under. And even when they were winning baseball games, you're still scratching your head at just base running errors and errors on the field themselves, and times where the hitting just completely went cold and stuff like that. The bullpen, by the way, has continuing to give up the most home runs in all of Major League Baseball. Like, this is a Rays bullpen we're talking about here. This is a Rays bullpen we're talking about. And so that's where I'll start, sort of, in regards to how I would grade, the three parts of this team: hitting, starting pitching, and the bullpen. The bullpen, for me, I would probably have to give a C. I'd have to give a C. They've given up the most home runs, and really the only reason why the C comes into play is because, take out the little early part of the season for Pete Fairbanks, and especially since he's come back after the whole nerve issue, he's really been locked down back there. He really has been. I know he had the moment there against Minnesota last Thursday, but he was put in a bad spot there by Davinsky. But really, other than that, I've been really, really excited with what Pete Fairbanks has been doing for the majority of this season. Probably going to be one of your trade chips, if we're being completely honest. And then Jason Adam, I think, has been pretty solid for most of the season. Clevenger, same thing. So on the back of those 3 arms, I think that's where I would give them the C. But as I mentioned, Sean Armstrong has not been nearly as effective as he was last year. We know that Kevin Kelly has been kind of up and down. Phil Maton, the guy who's making like $6 million on this team, Phil Maton's like the 4th highest paid player on this team. And for most of the season has looked like a AAA reliever, like, clearly. So would I like to see a little bit of a shakeup maybe in that bullpen this year? I know they have some good arms in the minors, and we saw one come up yesterday, Yusita, who was able to, or was it the other night, rather? Yeah, not yesterday. The other night, Yusita was able to come in and close the door in that 11-3 victory. Colin Poche came back, obviously. I know a lot of Rays fans have had their struggles with Colin Poche, but compared to Maton and Armstrong and some of these guys, I think Colin Poche fits in well. So that bullpen at the moment, I think I would give a C. And then going into the starting pitching, it's been really up or down too here. And there's been moments where I feel like there's optimism to come from this starting pitching staff, and there's some other reasons where I'm not as optimistic. I think Taj Bradley, we've talked about it this year, and you just saw the outing he had against Seattle. I mean, he's been nails. He's been nails lately. He looks like a completely different pitcher than the one that he was last year. He's clearly a future cornerstone of this team, and clearly he can play right now. So Taj Bradley, to me, has been the biggest plus of what I've seen from that rotation, clearly, even though he's only had 9 starts this season. But the stuff has been there. He's not walking as many batters as he clearly was last year. So excited to see Taj for the rest of the year. Ryan Pepio, we saw it yesterday, was able to get back on track, and I hope that that's a sign of new things. Zach Littell, I've called him a bulldog before. Saw that again the other night. So those 3 guys clearly are going to be in your rotation for the rest of the year. The other 2 guys is where my question marks lie. And, you start with Zach Eflin. And Zach Eflin pitched clearly like an all-star last year. And the Rays gave him the most money they've ever given to a free agent before. And I know we all sort of laughed at that a little bit. But ended up being, obviously, a really good top-of-the-rotation impact pitcher. In this year, because of all the injuries, not really his fault, but he was going to have to try to be that ace. And Zach Eflin is just not that guy. He's just not that guy. And you look at it this year through 14 starts, the ERA is 4.20. The guy has just great command, and that has not changed this year. Only walked 6 guys, and that's why the whip is low at 114, which is actually second on this team this season through amongst the starting pitchers. But hitters are hitting pretty well off him, hitting 264, all those things. So it has not been the most sharp season for Zach Eflin. And I have to think that with the salary he's making both this year and the salary he's making next year, where I believe it jumps to 18 million, we know the Rays are not paying 18 million for Zach Eflin. And no, nor should they. And if you don't feel like you have a team capable of competing this season, and knowing that you have Jeffrey Springs, who's going to be back probably sometime around the All-Star break, McClanahan's going to be back next year. Rasmussen's going to be back at the end of the year, probably back to full strength next year, more than likely. And then combine that with Taj Bradley and Ryan Pepio, and we'll see what happens with Shane Baz and Littell. You got a lot of arms here, is what I'm saying, and a lot of arms that you're not paying a lot of money. So it just becomes a numbers game. It becomes a monetary part here too. And even from a performance standpoint, Zach Eflin has not proven to be beyond his worth. So I would have to think Zach Eflin, in regards to trade chips, for what you have, Zach Eflin is going to be probably 1A, 1B, whatever, next to Randy Arozarena, probably, of your biggest trade chips this season, if they decide that is the direction they want to go in. So the starting pitching, I probably would say it's been a little bit better than the bullpen, because I will give them this. They have been put in some tough positions, especially earlier when the offense was really not going at all, and they had a thin margin of error. But I think the starting pitching, we would acknowledge, should be better, and maybe with Springs coming back, it probably will get better. But for right now, I'd probably give them a C+. And maybe that's a little harsh, like I said, but we also have to think about the expectations of this team. We always expect them to pitch well and to play defense well, and both of those things have not been as crisp as we've seen in recent years. So certainly the expectations, I think, play a role in that grade. So I would give them a C+. So the lineup. If you would have asked me this question 2 weeks ago, I probably would have been scoring this offense, probably a D+. Like, try not to be too harsh, but I mean, let's just keep it real. The offense it was putting me to sleep at night. I don't know about y'all. Like, we all love this team and everything, but sometimes there is nothing worse than Tuesday night, Monday night baseball, and the offense, you go through 5-6 innings, and the Rays have sometimes in some cases this year, 0 hits or 1 hit and no runs. Like, it's boring. It is absolutely boring, and it's a fight to not change the channel and everything. And again, love the team, but that's where I was at for large parts of the season. And it wasn't until recently, again, on this nice little run that they've had here so far, and really Jose Siri has been the energizer for a lot of that. Like we said, he's been responsible for at least 5 or 6 victories here down the stretch. Really, ever since he got benched for Johnny DeLuca, he's really turned his play around and has been a little bit more like the Jose Siri we saw last year. So, and then they had the explosion the other night in Seattle too, where they score 11 runs. Yandy hits a home run. Ben Rortvedt, who's probably one of the surprises of the season that I'm going to touch on here. And Esau Paredes, obviously, who ironically was carrying this offense for the first part of the season, and now he's hit his biggest slump of the season. But the difference here lately has been Yandy Diaz being on a 19-game hitting streak, which I believe is a franchise record, if I had heard that correctly. I know it's like the longest or the second longest streak currently going in the majors. That's helped. And then Josh Lowe, who has just been snake bitten with injuries this year, has started to look a little bit more like Josh Lowe of late. And it's like that's really all it took, is you get a little help right there. Ben Rortvedt is on a heater right now. And all of a sudden, the Rays look like they're playing a more entertaining brand of baseball. They're scoring more runs and picking up more victories. And that's how they've been able to scratch and claw their way back to nearly 500. But again, that's a 2-week sample size that I basically just spoke on. The overwhelming portion of the season, the offense was very unwatchable. We've talked about it. You go through the numbers, and They've hit 70 home runs this year. The only teams that have hit fewer than them are the Chicago White Sox, the Toronto Blue Jays, the Washington Nationals, the Miami Marlins. I mean, do I have to say anything else? Uh, all things being considered, batting average is down around the league. We've touched on that, but the Rays are hitting 236 as a team. Even as an OPS, they're hitting 676, so not great there, really. We talked about it. They steal bases, but they've also been thrown out 30 times. Like, that's the crazy thing. And I'm throwing the base running here kind of in the lineup as well. They've stolen 80 bases this year, but they've been thrown out 30 times. And the only team that's been thrown out more than them is Washington, I believe. So can you even call them a great base running team? I don't know. I certainly don't know that. In certain situations as well, we've seen that they've run themselves in the outs as well with just straight up stupid baseball. So can't really call them a great base running team. But yeah, the lineup, I think, for the overall season to this point, and you have to consider Randy as well. And should we have seen this decline coming based on the way he played last year? Maybe. Did any of us have him hitting under 200? I certainly did not. And now it's again created a situation where Randy Arozarena, next to Zach Eflin, is going to be on the trade block. I think there's no doubt about that. So factoring that all in, the offense for me, I'm probably going to stick to the. I said 2 weeks ago I would give him a D plus, and I don't want to overreact to 2 weeks, so I'm probably going to stay around there. I think when you're in the bottom half, and not even just in the bottom half, but in like the bottom 7 to 5 teams in a lot of these very important statistical categories, it's hard for me to even put them in the C's because C's are usually average. And I think they've been below average. So I think so I'm going to stay with that, the D plus for the lineup. So if you keep a track, I had D plus for the lineup. I had C for the bullpen and a C plus for the starting pitching. And is any of that going to improve? Again, last 2 weeks, we've seen all three sort of improve in their own ways. Can they keep that up? That's the big question. What I am encouraged by is we've talked about it. A lot of their wins they were picking up were against teams that were under 500. There was a stat about a week and a half ago that them and the Phillies were the teams that had beaten up the most on teams under 500. And what that told me was, okay, well, the Rays don't play well against teams over 500. But then they come out and they get a series victory over Minnesota, and they get a series victory over Seattle. So all of a sudden, that's 2 series victories against teams who are well over 500. And so you think you feel pretty good about that, and we'll see if that continues. But the tough part is you look at this MLB sort of wild card standing here, and again, you have the 3 playoff spots, so more teams are going to get in. The Rays are sitting right now 3.5 back. The Red Sox, if you can believe it, are in that third and final wild card spot, and then the Royals, who got off to a really good start, they've struggled of late. I think they're actually just even with Boston, actually. So they're tied for that third spot. And then the Houston Astros, who struggled to start the season, no surprise here, they've picked up their play. They've won 7 in a row, and they are 40-40 right at 500. So they're a half game above the Rays, who are right behind them. So they're still in the thick of this, and that's why it's really difficult to assess what the Rays are going to do. And I guess we really don't even have a good answer to that question right now because we still need more time. There's still more data points that we need to see. We can think all we want, well, they're an average team, we should rip the Band-Aid off. But when you're 40-41, you've clawed your way to 500, you've played worse than probably what your record indicates, and you try to think that, okay, we've played as bad as we possibly could. Eventually, this is going to turn. We're seeing some signs. We're getting healthier. Starting pitching, we're going to get a big lift here, hopefully, with Jeffrey Springs coming back. That's a tough spot for this organization to sort of be in. And so I just don't think actually we've seen enough data points here for the Rays. We haven't reached far enough into the season, I don't think. And you might say, well, we're reaching July. They're going to have to make this decision soon. Probably so. They're going to have to probably take this all the way up to the All-Star break before we can get a better idea of what this team should probably do at the deadline than 2 weeks after that. And listen, we've talked about the fact that they have the hardest schedule remaining to end the season. And they get the day off today, and then they're going to get 3 against Washington. And I tell you what, A 3-game series against the Nationals at home, who are not playing great baseball. They've lost 3 in a row. You've got to get greedy against Washington. And honestly, you need to sweep that series. Maybe that's asking a lot, but you need to sweep that series because after that, going into July, you got to go to Kansas City for 3. You got to go to Texas for 3. And I know Texas is not playing great baseball. They've lost 3 in a row as well. They are the defending world champions. And then going into the All-Star break, and this is what I'm saying, we're going to know by the All-Star break. 3 at home against the Yankees and 3 at home against Cleveland. That stretch right there in July is going to tell you whether or not the Rays are going to be buyers or they're going to be sellers. Because right now at 3.5 back, you're not selling. They're not far enough back. They only have to jump a couple teams now. They're not at that point where they're probably going to go into sell mode. They're just not going to do it. Maybe you'll see one asset maybe, but that's it. They won't go into full wholesale mode like we thought they were going to a couple weeks ago. So that whole thing's going to dictate. But yeah, in general, I like what we've seen from this team lately, and hopefully they can turn it around. They've been putting on a much more entertaining brand of baseball lately. So hopefully that continues. To the comments real quick here. Nathan Elliott, good morning. Thank you for listening as you do. I see Maker's Mark there in the background. What other fine spirits are on that shelf? Well, there's not many, Nathan. I have that shelf there, and I put it up right when my wife and I bought this house, and I had all these ideas to collect all these different bourbons and whiskeys and things like that, and I got to 3, and I've just hit a wall. I've just hit a complete wall, and I've gotten lazy on it. I need to build it more, but there's a Maker's Mark there. There's a horse soldier here. If you know the whole story about the guys from that movie 12 Strong. So that one's there on the left. And the one in the middle is just a cheaper, it's a peanut butter whiskey. Yeah, so I definitely got to fill that out a little bit more, but thank you for being observant. James said Zach Eflin hasn't been consistent like last year. So C+ is generous. Yeah. Again, it's not just Zach Eflin that goes into that grade, but clearly, as you heard me say, he's getting paid on this team to pitch like an ace. And I think he's been far from that. He's probably just been very, very middle of the road, Zach Eflin has. But I just have not seen, I'm waiting for that Zach Eflin of last year to sort of come through. And we just have not seen that yet. Bucks Rays Bulls, thank you for listening. What do you know about any Stamkos news? Well, that's where I was going to transition to next. Because we're getting really close to the moment here where free agency is going to open up. And I got to be honest, I would have loved to have thought that they would have been able to knock out a Stamkos deal by now. And I still felt, though, optimistic about it. But then we had Eric Erlinson on Monday from lightninginsider.com. And when Eric says something, I listen. I know he's very plugged in. And he said he wasn't as optimistic as maybe what he was before, the last time we had spoke to him. And maybe he was getting a little nervous. And that kind of scared me a little bit. And I know there's a lot of worrying Lightning fans out there. From what the best that I understand right now from listening to people that are in the know, and I'm going to play this little clip here in a second, this minute-long clip, the Lightning's offer to Steven Stamkos does not sound like it is in his ballpark right now. And maybe if you had this idea, and maybe I did as well, that he would take less to stay, maybe that's not so true. Or if he will take less to stay, it's not going to be as low a number as a lot of people think. I think there were some fans who thought, okay, and again, I was here too. Maybe you can get him for $5 million, $5.5 million, but you got to understand, we're talking about a player that when his career ends, he's going straight to the Hall of Fame. We're talking about a player that in the last decade, even with all the injuries that he's had, he still is 5th, I believe, in goals throughout that time, and he's 7 away from being 3rd. And he just put up 40 goals this season. And in the postseason, in the Lightning's very quick exit that they had, he was the best player that was out there in that 5-game series against Florida. There was no doubt about it. And I could count on a couple fingers, probably. One hand for sure, but a couple fingers. How many times in the entire time that the Lightning have been a playoff staple for the past decade or so that Steven Stamkos has truly been the best player during a playoff series? That's not a knock against him. It's always been Kucherov, or it was back in the day, it was Tyler Johnson, it was Palat here, it was Hedman here. It just never felt like it was Stamkos. But in this series against the team that ended up going on to win the Stanley Cup, Florida Panthers, Steven Stamkos was the best player on the ice for the Lightning. No doubt about it. So you put that all together, and I even brought this up on Monday's show. Even a guy like Alex Killorn, who has never scored 30 goals in his career, has never scored 40 goals in his career, never scored 50 goals in his career, never scored. Clearly, all these things Steven Stamkos has done, and being a captain for 2 Stanley Cup championship winning teams and a first ballot Hall of Famer, at the same age that Stamkos is now, Alex Killorn got a 4-year deal worth $25 million. And simply put, that's not going to be enough to keep Steven Stamkos, especially where there are some teams and some competitors here that are ready to spend money. They are ready to spend money. So it might not be as set in stone as we thought that, oh, yeah, Steven's going to come back. Steven's going to come back. I don't know if it's like that anymore. I really don't know if it's like that anymore. And I'm going to play this clip here from a couple guys who are super plugged in on what's going on with the Steven Stamkos situation. This is from the insiders on TSN from last night. This is Pierre LeBrun and Chris Johnston, 2 of the most respected insiders in the NHL, talking about the Steven Stamkos situation. And here was their latest update.
Steven Stamkos is one of those players where it would make sense for him to go wire to wire with one team in his career, but sometimes it just doesn't necessarily work out that way. What is the situation surrounding Steve Stamkos?
Well, status quo is the official update from Steven Stamkos' people in Newport Sports. Within that, I can tell you this. I mean, Tampa is going to have to change their offer, and that still can happen between now and Monday. In the meantime, there are a number of teams that are lining up hoping they can talk to Steven Stamkos and Don Mee and his agent come Monday when the market opens. Among those teams, I'm told, is the Nashville Predators, who have serious interest in Steven Stamkos. They need an offensive upgrade for their team, and I believe that Barry Trotz, the GM, will want to be in that mix if Steven Stamkos goes to market. Obviously, Steven Stamkos would like to remain in Tampa if possible.
Well, and there's bigger offers among those other teams right now, just waiting to be tabled. And one I would keep an eye on is the Detroit Red Wings, who have freed up money with the Jake Wallman trade they made this week. The belief is that they're one of the ones that are lining up to take a run at 91 if he hits the open market.
Boys.
All right, there you heard it right there. So the key thing that you heard Pierre LeBrun say is that Tampa has to up their offer. What the number is the Lightning are offering, obviously, none of us know. If I had to guess, they might be probably around that 6.5 range. And maybe Stamkos says, and maybe Steven's like, I want 8.5. Now, if the Lightning were to go up there, clearly you're not really getting him for any sort of discount. But again, I just feel like the Lightning are in a very tough spot here, because you could certainly make an argument that they're already sort of on the decline, coming off, 3 straight Stanley Cup appearances and 2 wins and stuff like that. The fact of the matter is they went home in the first round last year. The fact of the matter is they went home in the first round this year. And it sort of seems like there are teams in the East that have sort of caught up to them and are just frankly better. And for the last 2 years, we saw signs throughout the regular season that this team just was not the same, and we tried to hold on and say, well, let's see what happens when they get to the postseason. Yes, they outplayed Toronto. It didn't work out. But in this series against Florida, and yes, Florida just won the Stanley Cup. So clearly a great team, and they remind you so much of what the Lightning were 3-4 years ago. But I just never, I really didn't think the Florida series was that close. I just did not. I really didn't. I didn't have much confidence in that series. I know they showed flashes of playing their best hockey, but just thought Florida was way better. I really did. And Florida proved that through the 3 rounds that followed and in the Stanley Cup final. They're just a better team, and they're the world champions for a reason. Are the Lightning close to that right now? I don't know. And there's a lot of people that would say it's time to shake things up a little bit. But what you have to understand is they don't have much of a future at the moment as it pertains to draft picks. I mean, tomorrow night's the NHL draft. The Lightning are not picking till the 4th round. And some of the trades that Julien Brisebois has made of recently, and some of the moves that he's made, it hasn't been as great. Like the Tanner Jeannot one, we're always focused on that. Like, it's not a great sign when you trade 5 first-round picks for Tanner Jeannot, and a year and a half later, we're talking about they got to trade him to get his salary off the books because he's just given you basically nothing since he's come over, and he's hurt and all those things and doesn't meet the value. But in my opinion, if you're going to really keep this train going, and you decided, hey, we want to try to contend for Stanley Cup still because we still have a good enough core, we believe, and they're not too old yet, and we want to give it as many, kicks at the can as we can, even though we have 2 cups already behind us, then Steven Stamkos 1,000% has to be involved. In my opinion, if Steven Stamkos signs elsewhere, that's it. That is it. As far as the Lightning winning Stanley Cups with this core. That's just my opinion. Because it's not just about what Stamkos brings on the ice. It's what he brings in that dressing room. And all sports, the dressing room is sacred and there's so much that goes into it. But I definitely think in hockey, it's even more important in other respects. And Steven Stamkos has been here for, 16 years at this point? 16 years of his life. And we've grown up with him. I've certainly grown up with him. And he went from being the young guy coming in with seeing Stamkos and then became the captain of the team and everything that he's done. But he is the unquestioned leader of that hockey team. And I think a lot of guys on that team, they look to him. And if you take him out of that equation, I just feel like that just creates it just becomes flat is the risk you run. And not to mention, okay, you lose Stamkos. Now you got to replace him. And I don't know about you, but it's pretty hard to replace future Hall of Famer player that's still scoring 40 goals. It's pretty hard to do. So that's just my feeling that if they don't get this done with Steven and he moves on, I think that will probably be truly the end of this core winning a Stanley Cup and being in contention for that. They have no choice. If they want to keep doing it, they have to keep Stamkos. And there just feels like there's some players that have to stay here for the rest of their career. And not just here in Tampa, but in their respective teams. You feel like that has to happen. Mike Evans was certainly one of those guys with the Bucks. And the Bucks were able to get that done, and he's going to be a Buck for life. You want that to happen for Steven. And there's nobody that wants to see him go. This could be, and again, I'm not trying to put this fear out there. I'm just trying to cover all angles here. It could be something as simple of Steven saying, well, I want to go test the market. Obviously, I did this back in 2016. Let me just see what's out there. And if I get this offer, then I'll give you a chance to match it, and the Lightning will probably match it. That could be what's happening here, and there shouldn't be all this hysteria. We don't know. But the 2 teams that were mentioned there in that clip from LeBrun and Johnston, and there's merit to these, is Detroit, who, keep an eye on Detroit. He mentioned it. They traded a Jake Wallman, who was a solid top 4 defenseman this year. They traded him as a salary cap dump, sort of to San Jose. Really odd trade. Clearly, they're setting something up. Clearly, we know the relationship between Steve Yzerman and Steven Stamkos. It's there. And Detroit has $32 million in cap space. $33 million. They have $33 million to spend, Detroit does. And it feels like they've been waiting to make this super splash move. Everybody's waiting for what's the Yzer plan? What's he going to do? And maybe it's Steven Stamkos. And Nashville was the other one that was mentioned. They got $26 million to spend on this salary cap. So, and they're not the only ones. There are some teams that if they want to overpay for Steven Stamkos, and I use the word overpay and it almost sounds negative, but I think you probably can't put a price on him. But when I say overpay is if there's a team out there that wants to make him a $10 million player at this point, and stretch it out over through many years, that's something I don't think the Lightning are probably willing to do or really can't do, to be honest with you. So we'll see. I hope I was able to cover that good enough for y'all there and get all the bases there, because there's a lot of layers there to this of will he stay or will he go? But with the draft starting tomorrow, the buyout period opening up today, I think it's safe to say this is going to get done sometime by next week. I think we're going to know where Steven Stamkos is playing potentially for the rest of his career, and we hope that is here in Tampa Bay. So we'll see what happens. All right, we'll take a break here on the JP Peterson Show. Good stuff there, recapping the Rays. If you missed it, if you joined in late, went over the Rays, the loss last night, but the series victory over the Mariners, and then grading them at the halfway mark as they sit at 40-41. And as you just heard there, an update on the Steven Stamkos sweepstakes, what could and what could not happen. When we return, my UCF Charge On podcast host, Sean Green, who's been on here before, is going to join me. He was last night at the Advent Health Training Center in Orlando for the NBA draft. He was there. He spoke to everybody, even the Magic, from Jamal Mosley to Jeff Weltman, everybody. So we will get his take on the Magic selection and, of course, everything else that happened in the NBA draft, free agency, and all stuff like that. So back in 3. Stay with us here on a Thursday edition of the JP Peterson Show.
Summer is here, and it's the perfect time to shine with the exquisite June birthstones, pearl, alexandrite, and moonstone at the Golden Diamond Source. Each gemstone carries its own unique significance and style, making them perfect for any summer occasion. Did you know the 30th anniversary milestone is pearl, the traditional stone for this special occasion? And right now you can enjoy 5 years of interest-free financing. That means you can own a stunning $5,000 ring and pay only $83 a month with 0 interest for 5 years. That's a great deal. And shop online and get 15% off the June birthstones. And we love our partners, local businesses that have been here for 40 years. That's right, the Golden Diamond Source has been here for 40 years. Julie and Steve Weintraub have done so much in our community. We thank them, and we shop there. It's the Golden Diamond Source, 3800 Olmerton Road, always online at thegoldendiamondsource.com. Happy summer. As we head into summer and hurricane season, you must make sure that your home is fully insured. Over 40% of people in Florida are not fully insured because property rates have gone up lately. Your home is worth more, so it needs to be insured. Call the great folks at Italiano Insurance, 813-877-7799 to make sure you're fully insured. And also, you might just save some money. There are new companies coming into the state all the time. In fact, we just shopped our homeowners insurance, and I'm telling you, folks, we saved over $550 because Charity, the great customer service at Italiano Insurance, did all the work and found us a better company and a cheaper company. She'll do the same for you. 813-877-7799. Do something about these high rates. Shop them around. Could save you lots of money. It's Italiano Insurance, been doing business here locally for over 60 years. 813-877-7799. Tell them JP sent you.
Hey, Tampa Bay sports fans. This is two-time LPGA major champion Jane Geddes here. After winning the U.S. Open and 10 other LPGA events, I wanted to try something completely different. So I came right off the top turnbuckle and landed in the crazy world of WWE. And yes, you heard that right. That's WWE. Working for the Vince McMahon as the VP of Talent Relations for the company. Now, though, I want to work for you. Everything I've done in my life, I've done with incredible passion. And now I've turned my focus to leading the best real estate team in Tampa Bay, the Geddes Gordon Group with Keller Williams in South Tampa. If you're looking for a new home, an investment property, or looking to sell your current home, we will give you major championship level service. When you choose Geddes Gordon Group, you become part of our inner circle, like family. So if you're looking for a few golf tips or golf course view, we're going to stripe it right down the fairway. Call me at 813-485-6808 or go to gettysgordongroup.com, or again, give me a ring at 813-485-6808.
JP here for TryHydrateHeroes.com. That's our new website where you can get a free 3-pack of the great Hydrate Heroes Electrolyte Hydration Drink. all for free. Just go to tryhydrateheroes.com. We'll send you a 3-pack. While you're there, go ahead and buy the 30-pack for just $29.99. Special going on, less than $1 a serving for all the good stuff, none of the bad stuff. Folks, a lot of these hydration drinks have tons of sugar, tons of calories. Hydrate Heroes, just 5 calories, and they have all the electrolytes in there, plus other stuff that's going to benefit you. A mushroom blend that will help with inflammation. So much other good stuff in there. None of the bad stuff. It's Hydrate Heroes. Go to tryhydrateheroes.com and get your free 3-pack. The new Tropical Punch flavor is out, and it is fantastic. They'll send you some. Just go to tryhydrateheroes.com. Get all the information there. Pick up a 30-pack as well. Tryhydrateheroes.com. All the good stuff, none of the bad stuff.
Let's go.
Right now, back to the show on FanStream Sports.
All right, welcome back to the JP Peterson Show. Nick Getty's riding solo. Actually, just got a text from JP. Says he might hop on today to give a few of his thoughts on the Rays and Steven Stamkos. So we might get to that later in the show. But right now, we're going to keep it rolling with Mr. Sean Green, my UCF Charge On Football Podcast co-host. We're actually going to be recording an episode a little later today. But I figured, Sean, that you'd come on today because if you didn't know it, we had an NBA draft last night. My goodness, Sean. I mean, I've been hearing all this time that, this draft is the worst NBA draft of all time. And I'm going to be completely honest with you, Sean. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I knew who Alex Sarr was.
Uh-huh.
I knew who Alex Sarr was, but yesterday I had the draft on at home in the background and I'm cooking dinner and I heard Woj say the Atlanta Hawks are currently zeroed in on Zachary Risacher, and I literally Richardson, there you go. And I literally looked at my wife and I said, I know a lot of I don't watch watch every basketball game clearly, but I know everything that's going on. But when I heard that name, I literally went, I don't think I've ever heard that name uttered in my life until Woj said it on the broadcast. And maybe that shows my ignorance. I don't know. But yeah. I was like, and that's the first overall pick. I mean, I didn't see that coming. I thought it was going to be Alex Sarr. So what was was that surprising to you to see him go there from France, obviously?
No. So it kind of felt like it was going to be Risa Shea, I think that's how you say it, or Risa Share, for the last couple weeks. I mean, Alex Sarr, let's call it like it is. This is the worst draft in the last decade. This is the worst draft since the Anthony Bennett draft. That's why, to be honest, it was number one, the perfect time for the Magic to not suck. It was the perfect time for the Magic to be good. Because
imagine if the Magic had finally gotten the first pick and this was
exactly. It's like the Hawks get the number one pick, and it's like, because to be honest, I think like even last year's draft was much better than this year's. This year's, there's not really a clear-cut superstar. There's, I think, a lot of good role players, a lot of potentially good starters. And who knows, there might be a superstar that, comes out. But just on the outside looking in, it looks like a very weak draft. So Atlanta kind of was looking like they were going to take Zachary for the last month because Alex Sarr, I guess, reportedly did not want to work out for Atlanta, didn't want to be in Atlanta. And again, I think Zachary, if it was last year or the year before, he might be a top 10 pick, but I mean, he averaged 9 points per game overseas. Alex Sarr averaged like 10. They just have a lot of work to do. But France was definitely showed out in the NBA draft last night. I think like 4 or 5 players from France got drafted in the first round. So there's a shift happening, and it's been happening over the last couple of years.
Right, and I don't care where the best players come from. The best players are the best players. Yep. But selfishly speaking, I feel like it's hurt the college basketball product to an extent when you just don't have like that. Like who was the best player in college basketball? Zach Edey. Now, Zach Edey went 9. And we all would have said, that's ridiculous. Like, he's not the 9th, though. Even in this draft, Zach Edey was probably not worthy of being picked number 9. But that was the best player in college basketball by far. And we're literally saying that in the worst draft class in the past decade, he wasn't even worthy of a top 10 pick, but he got picked there anyway. Like, I feel like it's hurt the college basketball product a little bit that you just don't have that star. Like, I mean, I always use the most recent example of that guy was probably Zion, where you tuned in no matter what to see Zion play. He just had that overwhelming star factor, and we don't have that anymore. And you got a lot of these guys coming from the G League too. And I don't even know what the hit rate is with these G League guys, by the way. But like even the guy that went number 5, Ron Holland, I'm like, I even said to myself, who's Ron Holland? And then they're like G League Ignite. And I'm like, okay. But I know there's a lot of talent from these players. But yeah, it's just interesting how it goes.
Well, I think next year is going to be a little bit different. This year in college basketball, you're right, Nick. This year in college basketball, there wasn't a clear-cut guy that got the league excited. There was Zach Edey. And again, I was talking to somebody about this last night and today because somebody today, not last night, but somebody today said, I think Zach Edey was one of the steals of the draft. And I said, I don't think you comprehend the difference between college. You can't, you're not switching it. Like
Different
Zach
sport.
in college got a bunch of foul calls because he's 7'4" and refs were calling everything. If you watch the national championship game and you saw how Klingon kind of worked Edey, because Edey looked rough in the national championship, call it like it is. He's going to see a big body every single night in the NBA.
Right.
Edey struggles against big-bodied centers. And I don't think he would have gone 9 if it wasn't for Memphis desperately wanting a center. I think this year, compared to other years, teams were drafting for need instead of drafting best player available, which I think is unusual for the NBA. But in a draft where it's not as strong, you're just trying to find good rotation pieces. I think a lot of NBA teams were like, we're just going to draft for what we need. Now, in college basketball, I think there's one name this season that you're going to be hearing for the next 9 months, and it's Cooper Flagg out of Duke.
Right.
He's going to be the big name. He's a clear-cut number one that I think, again, when you have a clear-cut number one in college basketball, it gets everybody excited, regardless if he's on your team or not. So you have Cooper Flagg, and definitely next year's draft is a lot stronger. But, yeah, I think a lot of teams this year were like, we're just going to draft for need, and maybe wasn't exciting, but there were still a lot of good players in the draft, just not as exciting as usual.
Yeah, and even like Cooper Flagg, I feel like it matters too. Like, I know a lot of people hate Duke and everything, but when there's like that one star that just goes to Duke or to wherever, one of those blue bloods, like it does make the sport more interesting. I feel like
100%.
Like it definitely
100%.
plays a point. So Cooper Flagg, obviously, there's a lot of hype around him. The fact that he's going to Duke, like I mean, we've seen it. Even and us as Magic people. I mean, Paulo Banchero went to Duke, and obviously very happy that he wears an Orlando jersey every night. Clearly. Let's get to the Magic's pick because you were there at the Advent Health Training Center.
Yep.
Seeing what was going on from inside the building. And I got to give you credit because you've been following this draft process for a little while here. And I saw you had put out there that you were hoping for Colorado's Tristan da Silva to be there at 18 for the Magic to pick. And what do you know? Tristan da Silva is the pick at 18. So what was your going into this? Why did you like da Silva? What was the fit there?
So again, I assumed a lot of Magic fans wanted him. It kind of looked like that was a clear-cut consensus for a while back that if Tristan da Silva was there, he is a quote-unquote Orlando Magic type of player. I'm seeing it kind of split after they picked him, but I don't know why. I think a lot of people get nervous, Nick, when somebody says, oh, he has a high floor, but maybe not as high a ceiling as other players. And I think people get nervous because they're like, oh, well, shouldn't you be drafting for the highest ceiling? Like, that's what you want. The Magic were drafting 18th last night. I think some people are a little upset because Dalton Connect made it all the way back there. And of course, one pick ahead, the Lakers took him. And again, Magic fans get excited because it's a shooter. And
Dalton Connect, I mean, he went, I think part of it too is because he went to Tennessee and we saw more of him than Tristan da Silva. And he put up all these, crazy numbers in the SEC. I think that
here's what Dalton Connect doesn't do. Defense. He's not a good defender.
Right.
So again, like
if you can't defend, you can't play on the Magic.
No,
I think that's been established.
And that's why, like, when Magic fans and fans in the NBA in general, sometimes they fall in love with just a shooter or a guy that they envision can light up the scoreboard. And listen, sometimes you need those guys, right? But when I was talking to people after the draft, not at Advent Health, everybody there was very happy with the pick. When I was talking to people I know, they were just not as excited about it. And I'm like, you're viewing this the wrong way. You were picking at 18. Tristan da Silva is the best possible scenario for the Magic. And here's why, okay? 3-year starter, improved every year he went there. Can shoot the three, can space the floor. He's 6'9", shot 40% from three. He's a playmaker, so he's not just a guy that's a 3 and D. He can get to the basket. He can facilitate. He's going to back up Franz Wagner for the next 5 years. So it's like, if you're viewing it as, oh, guy's not going to be an all-star. No, I don't project him to be an all-star type of player. Can he be a excellent rotation player for the next 12, 13 years? Yeah, like he's 23 years old. So that's the knock on him, right? That's why Dalton Connect fell, is
Right.
they're older and a lot of these teams want young guys. The Magic don't need another young guy. They need a guy that's kind of polished, can come in and get minutes. You look at Keegan Murray with the Kings. I'm not saying that's a comp. I'm just saying Keegan Murray went, I think, 4th to the Kings, and the knock was, well, he's 23. He played all 4 years at Iowa. How
Right.
much more can he get better? And now you look at it and you're like, listen, he is what he is, but kid averages 15, 16 points as a starter and shoots the lights out. So, I mean, if you view it as a really good rotation piece, potential starter in the future, and is going to back up Franz Wagner, who's going to get a max contract this year or next year, then you really sit with it much better.
And he's another German as well. So the Magic are stacking up on Germans between Franz Wagner and Mo Wagner, and now Tristan da Silva, who I actually think is dual citizenship, if I got that right. I think he's Brazilian and German.
Yes, he is.
So yeah, and more length and defense and all that stuff that the Magic love. And you just mentioned there, you said Franz Wagner max contract, and this is how we'll transition here, because I've been on the fence about the whole max contract to Franz Wagner sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I also understand that the NBA, it works in a very unique way. And you see players all the time who are, third and fourth options on teams, and they're getting $40 freaking million. And the great example was yesterday, which sort of kicked off the whole extravaganza here of the offseason. Well, there's been other things, but this was a big one yesterday. Yep. OG Anunoby, the New York Knicks, a day after making the trade for Michael Bridges, which, by the way, sneaky good trade. Not even sneaky good. I think the entire NBA acknowledged that the Knicks absolutely crushed it with that trade. Yeah, you get 5 first-round picks, but Michael Bridges is an incredible player, in my opinion. Very underrated, and the Villanova connection continues. But the day after, they go and give OG Anunoby then, what was $212 million over 4 years? Is that what it was? Which comes out to
5. Yeah, so 5 years.
For 5 years, which comes out to $42 million per.
Yep.
Man, he's a good player. But $42 million. All of a sudden, I mean, but again, this is the stuff that's getting inflated, right? Of just the way the NBA is set up.
So there's a reason why. And this is why when anybody questions, do you pay Franz Wagner the max? Here's why you do it. Number one, NBA is about to sign a new TV deal. And for those of you not as familiar with the NBA and TV rights and all that, basically, again, it's similar to the NFL and all that stuff. It's whatever the TV rights are, that's kind of how the cap is influenced. So the NBA is about to get a nice little bonus in the next year, and it's going to go up 10% every single year. So if you pay Franz Wagner the max now, which is about $35 million, in 4 years, that's going to be cheap. So again, like that's where you have the same predicament when you're paying a guy like OG Anunoby $42 million. It's like, personally, I think OG Anunoby, when he declined his player option with the Knicks, I'm like, I think that's the number one target for the Magic. I didn't think it was possible because I just figured he would re-sign with New York. But that's, again, guy that can defend, guy that can score, guy that can shoot, guy that can facilitate. You rarely find those type of players. $42 million in 3 years is going to be a discount. And that's where I think this season, don't be surprised. Like, I know a lot of people are, the Magic are linked to Klay Thompson. A lot of people are like, if you pay Klay Thompson $25 to $27 million, you're overpaying. Maybe. But if it's a 3-year deal, on his 3rd year, $27 million for a starter in the National Basketball Association is going to be cheap, which is shocking to say. But you're going to see bench players getting paid $25 million in 3 years. So that's just where the league's going. We have to get used to it. We have to get our brains to look at $25 million as cheap, where it used to be like $4 million. But that's just where the NBA is going. So it'll be interesting.
I'll give you overpay. Paying $25 million for Klay Thompson is not overpaying. What's overpaying, and this was 8 years ago, is paying Bismack Biyombo 4 years, $72 million.
Yep.
For $16 million per, if my UCF math is correct there. For Bismack Biyombo.
That's what I like to call trying to get out of the gutter.
Yeah, I got nightmares. That right there is overpaying. That's overpaying. Paying $25 million for a multi-time world champion who could still shoot very well. I think the whole thing with Klay, and I feel bad for it honestly, because NBA Twitter is so toxic.
It is.
Everybody just latched onto he scored 0 points in the whatever. Like, obviously not great, but it seems like that's the only thing anybody wants to bring up is, well, he scored 0 points in that game, so he's clearly washed. Like, he's not washed. He's clearly not the same player he was, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have a role in the league. Like, or they're not.
I'm not saying that Klay Thompson's coming to the Magic. I have no insider information. If you look at Vegas odds, it's very heavily favor that he's coming to Orlando. What I will say is a lot of people, Nick, like, we can even talk the Paul George situation, right? Where it's kind of heavily rumored he's going to opt in and then get traded to Golden State. That's like the new shiny toy is he's going to Golden State, which makes you think Klay's gone. A lot of Magic fans were thinking they're going to get Paul George. They're like, Paul George loves the Magic, which he's been very forthcoming with his love for Orlando and the players Orlando has. Here's why Paul George is not a good option. Who is your number one option on the Magic? Paolo Banchero.
It has to be Paolo moving forward.
It has to be Paolo. You're then going to be paying Franz Wagner, who many think is right on the cusp of being an all-star. He averaged 19 points per game and didn't shoot the three good past January.
Right.
So he's a 22 points per game type of player. He needs to be your number two. You need a guy that's going to come in, is going to be a vocal leader, but is not the number 1 or 2 on your team. That is okay being the number 3 or number 4 and is going to elevate the team. Klay Thompson is that guy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would tend to agree because, and this shifts into the whole KD conversation here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's just a certain like generation of player, KD, Paul George, James Harden. Like, I don't want to say we're past these players being, or I am going to say that. I think we're past these players being number ones on championship teams. And mind you, Paul George has never even been a number one on a championship team. James Harden has been I was about to say just a complete loser for his entire career, but I don't want to say that because that's a Hall of Fame player, but because he's been really close, and it's not all James, but again, NBA is like, if you didn't do it on your own, then you're a loser. But he just hasn't gotten it done. I'll put it that way. And it just seems like there's just so much drama that follows these players. And that's my whole thing with KD is like, I saw that report from Woj and everybody's like, oh my goodness, this is madness. And I'm just like, we've been here before, man. Like, this has been a constant with Kevin Durant. And listen, I'm not one of those people that blames Kevin Durant 8 years ago for going to Golden State. You do what you got to do, man. I don't care. I really don't care. And when he got there, he was the best player on Golden State. There was no doubt about it. Okay, it was Steph's team, sure, but KD was the best player. Did not care about that whatsoever.
Miami.
In fact, if he was smart, he should have stayed in Golden State. That's, to me, where Kevin Durant made his biggest mistake, was leaving Golden State to go try to make it work in Brooklyn, of all places. And that was a disaster. Was it all on KD? No. And I'm not saying that it just seems drama is always around him. maybe it's not all directly him, but it always follows him everywhere he goes, if that makes sense. And maybe that's not fair. And Kevin Durant is still a fantastic player. I don't want that to be lost here. He almost put up 30 points per game this year with the Suns. His shooting is like the highest it's ever been. He's probably as smart as he's ever been, the same way LeBron is as smart as he's ever been, because they've gotten older and wiser, and the athleticism maybe has lost a little bit, and they're a better overall player. So I'm not going to take that away from Kevin Durant. But I think based on what we saw this year, there was a clear shifting of the guard in the NBA that Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and LeBron James combined to win, one playoff game, I believe, this entire year. And to me, that felt like a clear shifting of the guard. And so when I hear things like, oh, Kevin Durant's going to go to the Rockets, like, it doesn't really move the needle for me, Sean. I don't think if they get Kevin Durant, I'm not going to go, oh, the Rockets are a contender. No, they're not. Right?
Well, I'll say this. I would be shocked if the Rockets did it. The Rockets are in a similar situation than the Magic. I just think the Rockets they signed Fred VanVleet last year and Dylan Brooks. They're trying to get the rebuild a little quicker. I don't think they're ready for a Kevin Durant, first of all, and I don't think it'll happen. To your point, though, about the drama surrounding those type of players, I think the guard has been shifting for the last couple of years. And I think in the superstars of today, I think there's less drama and less ego. Now, we'll see. I think it's better to look at it in like 3 years from now. You don't see as much superstar movement, right? Superstars usually are staying in the place they are. They're okay staying and building with the franchise unless the franchise sucks and does not do anything to better the team. But like, look at Giannis. How many chances could he have had to leave the Bucks? He chose not to. He chose to stay in Milwaukee and keep building. Nikola Jokic, continue to stay in Denver. Denver has done what they can. You look at, again, a Joel Embiid. He stayed in Philly his entire career. You look at, again, some of the newer guys. Like all of these, Tyrese Halliburton, he's on the Pacers. He got traded. It was nothing he could do, but he's staying with Indiana. Anthony Edwards. Like, I can go on and on. These guys, you don't get the feeling like they're trying to build super teams. No, you get the feeling they want to be the guy on their team. They want to be the guy, and they want to build their team up to be able to go compete. So it's like Donovan Mitchell, perfect example. Cleveland Cavs. All these rumors that he's unhappy, he's going to go elsewhere, and now he's probably going to sign a 3-year extension to stay in Cleveland. So it's just a different time, Nick, where, like the Kevin Durants, the Kyries, the Hardens, the Georges, the Kawhis, in that 10-year span in the NBA, it was cool to leave your current team and go form a super team.
Right.
That was because you want to go win a championship. I think there's just, and again, I might be wrong on this, but I think the newer guard of players doesn't like that, and they are trying to build up with the team that they got drafted to or traded to win. They don't want to be hopping teams.
Well, I just don't think these players are number ones on championship teams. Like, that's just my take on it. I think the league is like, even like take Kyrie, for example. Kyrie's an incredible player. But you want to know why it works so well? Because Kyrie didn't have the burden, I feel, of being the number one guy. He could back off and let Luka be Luka. And you just saw they parlayed that into an NBA Finals appearance, whatever. He didn't play well, didn't go well. It doesn't matter. It still worked. That experiment has worked because he's the number two. And I think Kevin Durant, he went to Phoenix, obviously, and people said, well, Devin Booker's going to be the number one option. Well, no, it kind of became Kevin Durant. And that team was poorly constructed and poorly built. That's why I'm saying it's not all on KD. But I just don't feel like these players at their age are able to maybe overcome as much as they used to. Like, same thing with LeBron. Like, as much as I think of highly as I think of LeBron, and I said that I think he's the smartest he's ever been, he's not at that point in his career where he can take over and he can make up for all the shortcomings around him. And I don't think these generation of players are. So I think we've seen a shift in the NBA, and I'm certainly enjoying it. So we'll see what happens with NBA free agency. There's a lot of moving parts, as there always is. The NBA offseason is always 10 times more entertaining than the regular season. We always know that. And for the first time in a while, Sean, it feels like the Magic are actually at the center at a lot of what's going on. So that should be cool. I guess we have to address this because Bucks Rays both did ask, where do you guys think Bronny is going tonight?
I don't care.
The whole Bronny thing, I genuinely feel
That could be a
bad.
20-minute topic on itself. Like,
I genuinely feel bad for Bronny, and here's why. It's like you're the son of one of the most famous people walking the planet Earth.
Yep.
And like I think there was probably a lot of overhype with him as a prospect. Still a really good high school prospect. We should not overlook that, but it was obviously heightened because of who he was.
Yeah.
But he chose his path and went to USC. We can't forget he suffered a cardiac arrest. He's a miracle he's still alive, let alone playing. And then he had a very tough year at USC. And I think we all would have agreed, hey, you probably should stay back a year or two and get some seasoning under. But I think they're trying to accelerate this whole story of, well, we never had a father-son play in the NBA, and it's going to happen and whatnot, whatever. But I feel bad for him because there's a lot of people that are like it's not his fault that ESPN puts him at the front of all their NBA draft coverage and is talking about him nonstop, as they were doing this morning on First Take, as they were doing yesterday on First Take. That's not his fault. And when you listen to Bronny speak, he is so well-spoken and so well-mannered and doesn't deserve a lot of the heat that he gets just because of who he is, I think. So I genuinely feel bad for him from that standpoint, because the expectations that are being put upon him are setting him up to fail.
Well, the problem, and we were talking about this last night, is they were mentioning Bronny and doing Bronny stories during the first round and before the draft.
He was never getting picked last night. Getting picked last night.
And everybody knew that. And that's why it's like, for us, and I get it, like the NBA moved their second round to a second night for better TV ratings. And I think it'll last 3 years, because I think the only way it works is if you have a Bronny James type of player going to go on the second round.
Yeah, there's a thread tonight of everybody of like, where's Bronny going to go?
And that's the only reason the NBA will get ratings. Like, no offense, the second round in the NBA, nobody really cares about. Like, and that's how it's always been. That's why really the draft works for one night, because nobody really cares about the second round. I think the pressure on Bronny James is not fair, but what else is the media, especially for a draft like this, Nick, where I said, like, it wasn't as highly touted. It's one of the worst drafts in 10 years. The media did not have anything to talk about with the NBA draft. They had nothing to talk about. Nobody, no offense, the greater basketball community in the United States has no idea who Alex Sarr is. Maybe if you look up on the draft like every week and start, looking for a year, you would know. Same thing with like Luka Doncic. The common fan did not know who Luka Doncic was until he was here. So nobody cared about the draft, really. Everybody was like, this is the worst draft. So it's like, what else are you going to talk about? Bronny James.
Right.
But again, if it was any other name, if you put in, everybody says this, if it was any other name and it didn't say Bronny James, if you looked at his stats, you looked at how he played, he was a okay college player, but because of his name, that's the spin you take.
Yeah, I know. And he tried to put it out there at the combine, like, draft me because of you like my talent, not because of who my dad is. And like, the fact of the matter is he's going to get drafted because of who his name is. And that's not fair to him, but he shouldn't probably be in the draft in the first place.
And I'll answer the question of where do I think he's going, even though I said I don't care, because I frankly don't care. You will not be seeing Bronny James for a while. He's going to the G League. He'll be a G League player.
Yeah, whatever Rich Paul says, I don't care. He's going to the G League.
He's going to the G League for 3 years. And he's going to the Lakers. The Lakers are drafting him. He only worked out for a 55. I think 55.
I wouldn't be surprised if they even traded up for him.
No, because here's the thing. All these teams are so afraid to take him. Like, he only worked out for Phoenix. Yeah, well.
Oh, that's right. Right. He only worked out for a few teams. That's right.
He only worked out for Phoenix and LA. And basically, Rich Paul was on his high horse saying, well, when Bronny told me that what he wanted, he just wanted to get drafted. I knew what I had to do. And basically there was a lot of other teams that wanted to work him out. There was a bunch of teams that just, because again, like, it's not like he's this highly touted college prospect. Like, let me get it straight. If he's in the G League for like 3 years, I think there's a potential for him to come out. He's got some good skills. He really does. But he's nothing special that we've seen yet. Like, he needs to develop. He's a 4-year college type of player. that went into the NBA draft right outside of college in 1 year.
Right.
So I think he goes to LA. I know Bucks Royal says imagine Boston getting him at 54. Boston won't take
It'd
him.
be an epic troll.
Boston fans would
be hilarious. He wouldn't sign, I don't think. I don't think he'd even sign.
No, probably not.
No
But
way.
Yeah, he's going to LA. It's going to happen because, again, LA doesn't
Probably
care.
so. Probably so.
Doesn't care.
So there you go. If you're, man, we just got extensive NBA draft coverage. Thank you for that.
Hey, look at me.
There's one other topic I want to discuss while you were here, but I think we might have to. I got to get a little bit of a break in. So if you're okay, let's stay. If you're here to stay on for a few minutes after the break, we got to hit one here. But I did want to get into this story, and I don't know if you've been following this, Sean, but I have. This whole thing with Jim Schlossnagle, the new Texas head baseball coach. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. The dirty side of college athletics. And I got some audio here for everybody to hear if you have not seen it yet of Mr. Jim on Monday night after his team dropped the College World Series Game 3. And I got some audio from 2 days later when he took his talents out of College Station. And so we'll give you my take on this whole ordeal. Sean will give you his take as well as two guys who
JP here for the Jeeves Law Group and my...
Sorry about that. I hit the wrong button. But we will be back here in about 3 minutes, so stay with us. We'll recap this, and then JP's going to join us right after as well with his thoughts on the Rays and Lightning. Back in 3 here on the JP Peterson Show.
JP here for the Jeeves Law Group and my man Scott Jeeves, who lives right here and has long been a highly respected member of our community. He's a proud sponsor of the Tampa Riverwalk. Jeeves Law Group is also a proud sponsor of our Grand Central District in St. Pete and has neighborhood events throughout the year. He has an office on Central Avenue in St. Pete and one on South Howard in Tampa. You can't get more local than that. So when you need an attorney, are you going to hire some huge firm that advertises all over the state or the one that supports your favorite sports show? It's the Jeeves Law Group. We're local, we're trusted, and we get results. For personal injury and personal attention, call us for a free case evaluation. That's 8889-JEEVES. That's 8889-JEEVES.
All right, this is for all you guys who don't want to go to the gym and do 5,000 crunches. At Bay Area Modern Medical Center, you can get on the new True Body machine where you can reduce fat and tone up your muscle. It's like doing 54,000 crunches in just 15 minutes. Define your body as you see fit. True Body offers personalized muscle stimulation that delivers the equivalent of those 54,000 crunches in just 15 minutes. Just get in touch with them at Bay Area Modern Medical Center, BAMMC.com. Chris Lugo and the team over there will set you up on True Body and get amazing results. Non-invasive with comfortable and little to no pain and zero downtime. You can isolate and target those areas that you want to improve and treat multiple areas simultaneously. It's an amazing machine, so check it out at Bay Area Modern Medical Center, BAMMC.com.
JP here to ask the question, are you planning an event, meeting, or conference? If so, you'll want to call the designers and production professionals at Extravaganza Productions Incorporated. With over 35 years of experience in the events industry, designing and producing every type of small to large event, they can provide a huge resource for design ideas, audio, visual, sound, lighting, decor, and entertainment to turn your event into an incredible experience for the entire audience. Folks, I've worked up close and personal with this group at many national events and Tampa events, and they have unique capabilities that help you save time and money in the planning and execution of your next event. Don't delay. Call these pros today at 813-621-4700 or check out their website at extravaganzaproductions.com. Tell them JP sent you, and they'll provide a free initial consultation for your event. Extravaganza Productions, the best in the business.
Take your business or nonprofit to the next level with the power of video. Red House Streaming offers complete studio production services at our state-of-the-art facilities. Put our experience and expertise to work for you. From initial concept to final delivery, we'll handle it all and bring your vision to life. As your all-in-one production partner, we offer comprehensive marketing packages that not only showcase your brand, but amplify your reach. Contact Red House Streaming today.
Let's go! Right now. Back to the show on FanStream Sports.
All right, welcome back to the JP Peterson Show. Thank you to all of our advertisers for letting us go along today. The Jeeves Law Group, Bay Area Modern Medical Center, Italiano Insurance, and the Golden Diamond Source. Sean Green still with us here after that lengthy NBA segment. We don't get a lot of NBA talk on here, but kind of enjoy it when we do because it's a little, so at least for me, it's a little bit of it's a fresh subject to dive into. And I certainly learned a lot about the draft last night. Hope you all did as well. But Sean, I wanted to keep you on here because obviously we cover the college football side of things and more specifically our UCF Knights, but we obviously keep our eye on all the other college athletics. And, you know, college baseball is one of those things where it was we had a great tournament here and everything. And then we had the College World Series final. Game 3 was on Monday. A lot of us were watching the Stanley Cup, so might have missed it, but it did happen. And Tennessee wins that game. And then throughout this entire process, the Texas A&M head coach, Jim Schlossnagle, if I have that correctly, I think I do. And there was all these reports that he was going to take the job for Texas, who fired their head coach, I believe, on Saturday or Sunday. It was like right before the game. And so Texas A&M loses this game, a heartbreaker. And Jim Schlossnagle is asked this question of, you know, reports out there lingering of you going to Texas. In fact, I think I actually have the questions included here in the clip, so I might as well just play it here so y'all can listen for yourself. But this was his answer here in response to the reporter.
Respect to the difficult outcome tonight, but with the rumors circulating today about a specific job opening, what do you have to say about your future in Aggieland?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty selfish of you to ask me that question, to be honest with you. But I left my family to be the coach at Texas A&M. I took the job at Texas A&M to never take another job again, and that hasn't changed in my mind. That's unfair to talk about something like that. That'd be like you asking Montgomery if he's going to sign in the draft. But I understand you got to ask the question, but I gave up a big part of my life to come take this job, and I've poured every ounce of my soul in this job, and I've given this job every single ounce I can possibly give it. So write that.
Coach, thank you very much.
All right. So less than 24 hours later, Sean, what does he do? He takes the job at Texas. Less than 24 hours after that quote. And I guess from like the reporter's standpoint, this fired me up because, you know, I think like the journalists that cover the ins and outs of teams, not necessarily TV media, but like on the big networks and things, but those who are in the grind daily with the team and all that stuff is a very difficult job to do. And sometimes there's some very uncomfortable moments and there are questions that have to be asked because it's part of the job. And that reporter didn't ask anything out of line, clearly. And then I guess in that moment to be like, I think that's pretty selfish of you, like trying to tell the reporter how to do his job. And then to take it less than 24 hours later, less than proving that the question was warranted, was it not?
Yeah, that clip's really funny. I feel bad for
it's hilarious.
Feel bad for the reporter. We were talking about it last night at the draft. And I think it's like a young reporter too. It's college, obviously, so there's always chances for that. But
even more respect for asking the question.
No, 100%. I think it's funny because the coach apologized. And it was one of the worst apologies that you could literally think of. When the reporter was spot on, wasn't even saying, are you taking the job? Just said, what's your future here? And I think it's hilarious because for a coach to be that mean, I guess is the simple word, to a reporter and basically write that, like he was just trying to get a good soundbite to make people not believe it. And then not even 24 hours. Like that's the thing. Like if it was a week later, okay, it's still bad, but at least you took a week. Maybe you didn't have the job offer. At this point, he had the job offer 100%. He probably already accepted the job like immediately. So to basically die on the sword of I came to Texas A&M because I love this university. I came here to coach this team. die on that hill when you know in the back of your head I'm going to be announced as Texas's head coach tomorrow. Despicable. It's disgusting and it's stupid.
Yeah, it's funny too because like this isn't like leaving Texas A&M to go to some school like out west or up north. Like you're leaving to go across the state or whatever to the biggest school in the state, which makes it even worse. Like, and I don't know if you're a Texas A&M fan, you got to be sick because you lose the game, you lose your head coach, and then by the way, all your best players just entered the transfer portal right after.
Yep.
Like you lost everything within a span of 24 to 48 hours. And yeah, I heard the apology. Whatever. Obviously, it was a forced thing, clearly. Yeah. And the whole thing, like he said, to me in that moment, you probably say like, out of respect for my team, we just lost this. Like I don't think we should. Like it's just not that hard.
That's the right answer.
That's the right answer. Than to go down the route of I'm pissed off you asked the question, and now I'm going to storm out of this press conference. I'm done taking questions after this. Like. And the fact that it was a young reporter, like Coach K did this, didn't he? To like a young reporter a couple years ago. Remember that? We asked him a question and then he said he tried to give him some life advice. And he was a young reporter, like in college, I think, as if like the college reporters don't have a place at the table. And that's the part that bothers me. Like to me, it takes a lot of guts in that situation to ask that question when you're a college reporter. So I had even more respect for it. And you're doing your job. You got to ask the question. Somebody was going to ask it. And what's the right time to ask that question? Who's going to be able to talk to him after that? You're not.
Well, and clearly it wasn't the first question. Like that's the thing. Like I'm sure. And again, no offense. I don't think anybody watched the press conference besides that one clip. I'm sure a lot of reporters asked about the game before that clip.
Right.
If it was, and again, I'm not enthralled with college baseball to the point where I knew that there was rumors surrounding it. But clearly, if this might be the only chance we get to ask if and again, you just gave the perfect answer. You gave the PR answer that every single coach that is rumored for another job gives.
Right.
I'm not going to comment on that. Just lost the national championship. Going to take some time. I appreciate you asking.
Instead, he set it up to have egg on his face, and that's exactly what he does. Now, does he care? No. He's swimming in money. He got to the place he wants to be. It's a better job, whatever. All that's fine. But it's just funny to me that, college athletics, what they are, and the portal, what it is. It's like we make a big stink about, so-and-so players leaving my program for this, when the head coaches are free reign to do whatever they want, and they leave as ugly as this was, clearly. And it's like
this was as ugly as you can go.
Exactly. It's like crickets from the coaching world. So I don't know. I didn't like it. I think sometimes I just don't like people getting ridiculed like that for doing their job by people who are supposed to just answer questions and keep it. I mean, I don't know. That's just me. But I don't know. It was probably the last we hear from all this whole situation. And that's it. But Sean, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for giving me so much of your time today, and the NBA draft talk that we did, I thought was pretty fun. Yeah. So thank you, and I will see you later because we're going to record another episode of the UCF Charge On podcast later, which I guess I'll pump it for you here. We can find it on YouTube, find it on Apple and Spotify. And did I miss anywhere else? I think I covered all my bases there.
Yeah, we are running a giveaway. So if any...
that's right. Give the giveaway. There you go.
If you guys want to win a copy, if we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, we're about 300 away or so. We're doing a giveaway. So if you guys want to win a copy of College Football 25, we'll be giving that away by July 19th if we hit that benchmark. So go subscribe on our YouTube channel and follow me and Nick on Twitter. If we don't hit that and we hit 850 subs by July 19th, we're giving away a couple tickets to a UCF game, Wawa gift cards for those of you who are not UCF fans and don't care about the tickets, and some Charge On hats if you want to come on over and be a UCF fan. So go subscribe there for that.
There you go, Sean. Thank you so much, and I will see you later tonight.
See you later, Nick.
All right. I think JP's down there on the bottom, so I'll wait for him to get set up, and he'll join us here. I think, let me know, give me the head nod when you're ready down there. All right, there we go.
What's up, Nick?
I am doing great. How you doing over there in New Orleans? How you doing there?
It's a beautiful day in New Orleans. We're having a great time.
running around doing ghost tours. Did a ghost tour last night, kind of history of the French Quarter, finding out all the macabre stuff. Some very interesting stories. Highly recommend the ghost tour if you come to the French Quarter. We're having some nice breakfast in the room this morning, and we're waiting for the breakfast to come. And all of a sudden, I just hear this humongous crash outside the door. So the breakfast got right to the door, but then it didn't. So here we are, ready to go. I was just listening to your conversation on Schlossnagel.
Yeah.
What a tool. What an effing
Right?
tool. Oh my God. The guy you were spot on with the College Reporter. That kid could not have been more polite about the question. I was surprised to hear it was a College Reporter. It was such a professionally done question, very well executed. He was polite. He gave deference to the moment, but you were absolutely right. The question had to be asked. And you're also, to your point about the College Reporter, these older established coaches that beat up on college reporters, whether it's Coach K or Schlossnagel, it's such a bad look, man. It's such a bully look. And,
Right.
Just have a little bit more class about you. Have a little bit more. And then the fact that dude takes the Texas job is just like, that's going to go down as one of the, that's kind of the Nick Saban-ish, I am not looking at any other job. Who was the other one? Oh, in Atlanta, Petrino, telling all his players he's not going anywhere. And then 20 minutes later, he's on video doing the pig suey.
Yeah. And then it's like, it creates it after where they're like, then someone will ask them a question. I think it was yesterday. Somebody asked him you said you were in it for Texas A&M and you loved the university and nothing was going to change that. So what changed less than 24 hours later? And what do you say to the people you misled? And then he's like, well, I don't think I misled anybody. And I'm like, okay, maybe you certainly lied. You did mislead, and you took a job at the biggest university in the state, which whatever, that's your right to do. Like that part doesn't matter. It's a dirty part of it. This stuff always happens during seasons and championship runs, and that's the part. The timing sucks, but don't skirt around it and get defensive over it. It's like, just be honest with people.
Yeah. And people are okay with it. Listen, I'm doing what's best for my family. It's an incredible offer. My time here at A&M has been amazing, and I really, we got to the championship game. We just fell short. It's there's so many easy, classy ways to do it, and then there's the a-hole way to do it, which he perfected, and will go down in history. And and quite frankly, that's all Jim Schlossnagel will ever be known for, is that a-hole press conference moment right there. Because
That'll how it goes. But I was going to ask you though, so transitioning to start the show, I opened up with the Rays and did a lengthy monologue there because we reached a half point. We're 81 games through, or 82 games through. Wait, my math is so off. We're 81 games through. There we go. Yeah. And they had gotten them all the way back to 500, and they dropped yesterday. So 40 and 41. They're only 3.5 back in the wild card, and there's only 2 teams ahead of them to jump. By the way, they've closed that gap a little bit. So, has your feeling changed about the Rays, and how would you sort of sum up the first 81 games we saw?
Oh, I think the first 81 games, if you really look, and you're a numbers guy, Nicky Numbers, let's not forget your old nickname, tells you that they are extremely fortunate to be 40 and 41.
That was my take.
Am I wrong?
That was my take.
Okay, I didn't hear your take. So the numbers do not suggest that they are going to make a run. Also, because they're not going to make any significant investment in this team, nor should they, quite frankly. They shouldn't. I mean, they should not be buyers. They should not go out and give up any assets whatsoever to try and save a team that is mediocre at best. It's mediocre at best. To me, this is a time to go get some assets, trade off older players, Zach Eflin, anybody with any value, and reset this team. This core of this team. You can't, if you look at this compared to, and we'll talk about the Stamkos situation in a second. If you compare the two situations, you have one team that is a veteran team and has had a core together that has won championships and still has an open window, clearly, of at least, I would say, 3 to 4 years. The other team has a core of players that's done some pretty good stuff in the regular season, has had 0 postseason success, And well, I mean, I guess you could use this. Some of this core was on the 2020 World Series team, so they got to the World Series. But it's clear, and then of course dismantled the team because that's what you do when you get to a World Series if you're a cheap franchise. But then, so now there's just sitting here with a rusty old core of a team that just is not getting any better. And I don't think, it's like, oh, Yandy Diaz is going to grow into a slugger. No, he's not. Randy Rosarena is going to, first of all, everybody knows he's gone. He's a Boris client. So you got to get rid of him as soon as you can, as soon as he reclaims some market value. Brandon Lau is just, he's just a China doll. He's never going to be able to sustain the rigors of a Major League Baseball season. He's just not. So, I mean, there's nothing really redeeming about this older core of players. And I don't care what you get for them. Open up spots for younger players, go get younger players, and let's get going. Maybe you find a couple diamonds in the rough. This team seems to be pretty good at that. The front office is really good at finding those type of players. So sell off everything you can. This season is a wash. Wait for your pitchers to come back next year. Go get some younger players and start building towards the future. I don't think this is really a hard decision to make.
What I said earlier was like 2 weeks ago, this was a very cut and dry answer. And It was, there's so-and-so team, there's so many teams you got to jump. You probably don't have enough juice. You've gotten as healthy. I mean, you're going to get Springs back, of course, but as in regards to your lineup, you've gotten as healthy as you're possibly going to get, and it's not getting better. But I gave them credit because in the last 2 weeks, the product has been better.
Yes.
They went on a stretch there where they won 6 or 7, and it wasn't just, okay, you beat the Pirates. Like, you took 2 out of 3 against Minnesota, a pretty good baseball team, and you probably should have swept them. And then in this series, you dropped a game yesterday because of you could argue an ill-advised move by Kevin Cash to pull Ryan Pepio there, which I didn't bang on him too much because that's just what the Rays do. It just kind of but I wish there was more of a feel for the game there in that moment.
Yeah,
but
88 pitches is not a lot.
Right, and you only give it up one
the way
hit.
He's pitching.
Right. But you still took 2 out of 3 against 2 really good teams right there that are playoff teams in Seattle and Minnesota. So I'm like, okay, well, that's what you weren't doing before. You had clawed your way back to 40-40. You're only 3.5 back. So it's like, it's tough then at that point to say, okay, well, now we're going to sell off the whole entire farm. Maybe you don't buy necessarily, but it's hard to be like, hey, we're open for business for everybody. Because as a team, like, I don't know if that sends a great message where you're right at 500 and only 3 back and you're like, all right, we're waving the white flag. So I said this, if you look at the schedule coming up, they got Washington this weekend, and I think they need to sweep Washington if they have any hopes of trying to go for it, because right after that, you go into July, and they got Kansas City, Texas, New York, and Cleveland going right into the All-Star break. That's a tough stretch right there. So that's my thing. It's like, I think we're actually a week or 2 away from really knowing that answer, depending on how they play going into the All-Star break, because then you're going to play 3 playoff teams right there.
Yeah, but Nick, I see your point. But again, the underlying numbers, if you look at they're 3.5 out. Okay, that's because you have, you've created another wild card spot.
Right.
If it was back in the old days, you'd have no chance of the postseason whatsoever. So let's not get it twisted that this team is somehow in contention. They're not. They're not.
Well, they're certainly not in contention for anything in deep October. No way.
Right.
Like,
So
when I say contention, they're in a contention for the third wild card.
So what do we want to
spot.
do? Play meaningful games in September?
But JP, they love raising that wild card banner. They love raising that wild card.
Let me just say this: if it wasn't, and we all know this to be true, and you may not hear this other places, but if it wasn't for the vote coming up, they would have already started selling off players. And I think it's the right thing to do. But this is how twisted this organization is. It's never about making baseball decisions. It's always about money. And getting this vote is about money, and lots of money for Stu Sternberg, not the baseball organization, but for Stu Sternberg. It's a ton of money, and he's not going to do anything to jeopardize that vote by selling off players. Even though it's a great baseball decision to do, you can't sell that to a city council that knows nothing about baseball and clearly not a whole lot about urban planning. But that's a whole nother thing. But that's the baseball move. Anybody would tell you, and the Rays themselves of years ago would have told you that as well. But again, it's not about making good baseball decisions. It's always about money. So they probably won't sell off any players and say, oh, we're going for it. You can fool some of the people, but not me.
Yeah, like
Not me and
like
not
I
you.
said it. Yeah, like my deep down, I think they're average, and their record shows they are completely average. Um, and we know. I remember I put that number out there a couple weeks ago. They have to play so far above 500 baseball to get to like even 86 wins, which is probably that number you got to circle for that third wild card spot, and how unlikely that was. But I don't know if the front office is going to punt if they're within. That's all I'm saying. Regardless how I feel, I'm not convinced they're going
What's the
to. They're
best
just going to
baseball
punt.
move? What's the best baseball move for this franchise moving forward?
To set them up for the future, it's to sell off assets.
Thank you.
Because of the way they've played recently, if they keep it within reason, with they're literally like a game or two back at that moment, I don't see them punting.
I agree with you. I don't think they will, and I think it's all political and it's all about the money. It's all about the vote. So this is, again, to my point, this is not a baseball decision. It's not a baseball decision. This is it's a money decision, in my opinion. But good luck. I hope everything gets passed. They get all the money they need, everything they want, everything that they, that they all get the affordable housing goes well, and the museum goes well, and the parking garages go well, everything, and he makes another $8 billion. I hope that and puts that back into the team. Don't hold your breath.
We'll see if they continue to play good baseball too. So the other thing that I was going to get into, because this is really the day where a lot of this is heating up now in the NHL, because the buyout period opened up today, and you're already starting to see some of the older players on contracts getting bought out. And then tomorrow is the NHL draft. The Lightning don't have anything to worry about. They won't be picking till the 4th round. So the NHL draft is pretty much a nothing burger for us. But I played audio earlier, JP, and it was from Pierre LeBrun and Chris Johnston from TSN on the Insiders show last night. And he said, it's status quo on Stamkos right now from his camp. But what's clear is that Tampa has to up their offer to get Steven Stamkos to come back. And we don't know what those numbers are, but it's starting to become clear that if you were thinking you were going to get some great discount, it don't look like we're there right now. And it looks like he's probably set to hit the open market and at least test the waters.
Well, yeah, this is not totally shocking to me. Negotiations don't happen until the 11th hour and just about everything, right? This is same thing happened with Mike Evans. So none of this is shocking to me. This is the dance that JBB has to do. This is the dance that Stamkos agent has to do. And nobody's going to reveal their cards, until the very, very end, right? Till everybody's pushed their money to the middle of the table. So I don't find this. If I'm a Lightning fan, I'm not quaking in my boots. This is all part of the process. And listen, it's going to. I think the Red Wings have opened up a crap ton of cap space, and obviously he has a great relationship with Stevie Yzerman. So that's a danger point for me. If I'm a Lightning fan, that's where I'm looking. And wouldn't it be very interesting if Steve Yzerman, who basically rebuilt this franchise into winning 2 cups, got this started, didn't put us over the top though. Didn't put us over the top, right? Important distinction. JBB did some things that Yzerman wasn't willing to do, apparently. But I think it's the old Dungy Gruden argument. They all get credit for it, right? So how ironic would it be for him to come steal away the heart and soul of the team that he built?
That would be such a gut punch. And yeah, you mentioned Detroit. I looked it up this morning. They're at after trading Jake Wallman to San Jose in a salary dump yesterday. They're up to $33 million in cap space. And Yzerman's been there now a little bit, and everybody's wondering what's Yzerman doing, what's his plan, because it seems like it's been all over the place. And it feels like this is the year where it's like he's going big game hunting. Yeah. And I mean, I know there's some other guys who are a little bit younger out there, like a Jake Gunsel, for example, who scored 40 goals in this league a couple times. Maybe he's probably ahead of Stamkos in regards to priority for some of these teams. But at the same time, there's familiarity there with Yzerman. And you have to think he wants that veteran. He has a young team there. He needs that veteran now to stabilize. And same thing with Nashville, too. I mean, a respected general manager like Barry Trotz, who's had a lot of battles against Stamkos, his teams over the years. I'm sure he knows him pretty well and probably admires him. His Nashville's got $27 million opened up, and they were one of the teams mentioned, too, that could make a run. So, yeah, he's got options out there. But I said it might be one of those things when maybe Steven has communicated this at this point. We don't know. of, hey, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to see what's there. If I get this offer, I'll give you the chance to match it. And maybe the Lightning will be like, yeah, whatever that number is, we'll match it within reason. Unless one of these teams comes out and says, hey, we're going to give you 10 million or 11 million over term, then that's where things start to get a little difficult.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you mentioned, two guys, Barry Trotz and Steve Yzerman, who probably value Stamkos' leadership more than anything because they've seen it in action up close and personal. No one more than Stevie Yzerman outside the organization. So yeah, so that's where the value lies. Young teams that need to know how to win, how to be professionals. So he brings so much more than just the 40 goals. So his value to these other teams is tremendous. Question is, how much are they going to leverage their future at a high price to get that captaincy, to get that leadership, to get that 40 goals? I mean, because as much as we love Steven Stamkos, this was even though he got to 40 goals, the February was bad.
Yep.
There were times when he looked like, okay, this is a lot about Stammer in his office and being. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way at all. I mean, he just had some down moments. All hockey players do, but it also comes with age, no question about it. And is he on the back nine of his career? Absolutely. Is it 18? No. Is it 11? Probably not. Is it the green on 12? Maybe the T on 13. There's some good left. There's some good hockey and golf left in Steven Stamkos. There's no question about it.
But yeah, and just because you're older though, like, are you, regardless of what the contract is it likely that he's going to live up to the number on that AAV? Probably not. But it's more than that. And look, think about it. I mean, is Sidney Crosby in a different tier than Steven Stamkos? Sure. Like, he's in the all-time like top 10, top 5 list of all time. Stamkos is clearly a first ballot Hall of Famer, but Crosby's in a different beat. But Crosby's gotten older, and you still find he's been able to change his game, and he still is regarded as one of the best in the league. Ovechkin slowed up a little this year, but pushing 40 years old was still doing his thing. Even like older examples, Joe Thornton was putting up all-star seasons when he was 37, 38. It didn't take until he got 40 that he hit a wall.
Stamkos is in great shape.
Like, that's what I'm saying. Stamkos, he hasn't missed as many games. Like, when everybody talks about the injury things, like, it's ancient history. They were freak injuries. They're past him. He's played a lot of hockey now over the last 4 years where they've gone deep in postseasons, and he's been completely fine. And to the point about, okay, he had a tough February, and we pointed that out. The last time we saw him, he was the best player on that ice for the Lightning in that Florida series against the best team in the league. And some of the things we didn't see throughout the regular season, we saw in the postseason. So it gives you some hope a little bit. But I just think, and I said this earlier, and I don't know if this is overreacting, if you lose Steven Stamkos, if that were to happen, whatever the chances that happens, and I'm not trying to put hysteria in there, I'm just giving the other side. If it happened, I have a hard time believing that the window stays open then, because now you got to replace not just his production. I don't know how you overcome that from a locker room standpoint, a dressing room standpoint. And what does Victor Hedman think then after that? Because you got to sign him too. And what does he go? Well, we just lost Stammer. That's kind of, I think these all these parts play together in regards to Stamkos.
Well, and let me go back. Those are all great points. Let me go back to where Julien Brisebois is as well. Brisebois has to account for the future as well. But he also knows that the window is open right now. To me, this is not a matter of, are they going to sign Stamkos or give him a competitive offer? I think they are. I think at this point, JBB is trying to say, I want to hold on to Chernak, and maybe see if I can get this done with just trading Jeannot. But if I got to trade Jeannot and Chernak and up my offer, I'm going to do it. But I got to find out if I have to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
He wants to keep as many good players as he can. That's his job. So right now he's trying to, okay, Steven, where are we at? Does he, you don't want to insult him, and maybe that may have already happened. But, in the end, if you come to the number that they're looking for, you come to the number. Whatever happened earlier is, that's just negotiations. And everybody's a professional here. We understand what this is about. So it's a delicate dance. Do I think Julien Brisebois feels like he can get Steven Stamkos? I think he does. I think he knows he'd maybe rather not have to give up Chernak, but if he does, and for me, I'm
if I can trade Chernak right now and trade Janot, and to sign Steven Stamkos for 3-4 more years, I'm doing it, and I don't care what it costs me.
Yeah,
I'll
you have to.
I'll figure the rest out.
Yeah,
I'll figure the rest out.
You can figure out. I mean, I'm not trying to say that top 4 defensemen grow on trees. They don't. But
The
I'd rather
emergence of some of the young guys on defense, though, kind of mitigates that a little bit.
Right. And as we've kind of said, I mean, the Chernak thing, once they if they didn't trade for McDonough,
Right.
I think we all were on board of, okay, they got to try to find a way to get out of Chernak's contract.
Right.
But because they got McDonough, it's like, well, that's when he played his best hockey. And now you have that stabilized 4 that all know each other very well, that you can mix and match. And so you like that. But if it's at the expense of keeping the guy who is the linchpin to the whole operation in that locker room, then you have to make tough decisions. End of the day. That's my whole overarching thing, is that the Lightning truly want to stay in this contention period. If they feel like they're in it, Steven Stamkos has to be back.
Right. I agree 100%. And if they don't bring him back, we'll have that conversation there. Who else is on the market? They've cleared up some cap space. Everybody wants to play in Tampa Bay.
They won't have problems.
I don't want to have that conversation
players.
Until we have to have that conversation.
Exactly. I'd hope for this all to be like the Mike Evans situation, where we
again, remember, we were, everybody was like, oh, he's gone.
Right.
And then Mrs. Evans stepped up, right? Maybe Mrs. Stamkos will step up and make this decision.
Yeah, that's the other part of it.
Mom,
I mean,
let's go.
That is the other part of it. I mean, I think things are a little different now than they were even in 2016 when he went through this first round, where he's got, I don't know how many kids does he have? Does he have one? I don't even really know. Two kids, right? So he's got kids and everything.
Playing hockey in commercials.
Right. And we've talked about it, how the freedom you have to go around Tampa Bay as an athlete where nobody's bothering you and all those things. I'm sure that all plays a role in schools, everything. Like, it's more than just a hockey decision, I guess, is the way I'm putting it.
Well, for Steven Stamkos, unless some bridges have been burned that I'm not aware of, there's no better place for him to play. No better place for him to play. And for his family, it just doesn't make none of Ryan McDonough comes back. I just don't think that. I think Ryan McDonough coming back was a piece that JBB felt he had to do to keep Stamkos. I think, I don't know any of this. This is just my feeling. Okay. Nobody's ever told me any of this, but my feeling is, the way the whole Ryan McDonough thing went down did not sit well with Stamkos either. And a lot of people in that organization. But it was a necessary evil at the time. Something had to be done. But this is the part of the business. It sucks. So, is there still residue? But then you bring him back. To me, that's part of, okay, we're healing that wound, right? We're healing that wound. We brought your best friend back. Now you guys are really ready to make a run. And to me, that's what tells me that this is just a massaging of the numbers at this point. It's Stamkos is trying to get something that he can swallow and be happy with and still be able to field a team that's in championship contention. And JBB is trying to do the same thing. And at some point before free agency, I believe they're going to get it done.
Yeah, I'm still leaning him coming back because it's I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it, I guess, is the thing.
Right.
I guess we'll subscribe to, kind of like how we did with Mike Evans. Before we get you out of here, because I don't want to take too much of time of your vacation. We had talked a lot. I think last time you were on was Monday's show with me, and we had talked a little bit about the Stanley Cup. And I hate to go back and look at that show because I felt like we were so like on the Edmonton's going to win this game. Edmonton's going to win this game. They did not win that game, but we talked so much about it. Did it live up to the hype for you of everything that went into it?
It did. I thought the game was incredible. I thought the last 8 minutes is just some of the best hockey I've seen in a long, long time. The part where Bobrovsky's on his back, and he can't get up, and there's just chaos around him. He's trying to get up in a 1-goal game, trying to hold a 1-goal lead. And for Game 7 of the Stanley Cup, and can you imagine the panic in that man at that point where he's on his ass and he can't get up, and there's just chaos around him, and nobody found the puck. Like, nobody could find the puck in front of him for 8 minutes in a row. If you're a Panthers fan, that had to be the longest freaking 8 minutes of your life. It kind of reminded me back of the 04 Cup when the Lightning were clinging to
I'm just so glad it didn't. Glad it didn't involve. I watched every second of that game. I was like, I usually don't watch every second of games that don't involve the Lightning, but I did for this one. And it was from the moment it started from. There
great
was
theater.
there was a good amount of Edmonton fans there, and even Florida fans.
lot.
Like, everybody was singing "Oh Canada" when it started, and I was like, "This is great."
Yeah.
And they sang the national
Alanis
anthem.
Morissette, yeah.
Alanis
Great
Morissette
atmosphere.
killed it. It was a great atmosphere. So
atmosphere.
shout out to South Florida. They really showed out for that game. It felt big. And then I saw that. I was always curious what the rating was going to be. And I saw it. Holy hell. 16.7 million, I think, across North America. And you might say, well, that includes Canada. 8 million of that number, it was like a true 50-50 split, was in the United States. We had 8 million people in the United States watch Game 7 of the NHL Final. That's not too far off from what the NBA and the World Series gives you
Exactly.
nowadays.
Not only that, and it wasn't like these were two, original 6 franchises with huge national followings. Not at all. So, but of course, Connor McDavid. I thought it was great theater. Edmonton gave it their best, and tip of the cap to Florida. It was nice of them to let in, about 8,000 Oiler fans into their home arena for a Game 7. Don't ever forget that. So look, it was everything. It was built up to be. Listen, we were open about this. We wanted to see the Panthers have a historic choke. I mean, if you're a Lightning fan, that's what you should want. That's what you should want. But in the end, you tip your cap and say, "Nice job, guys." Feel great for Paul Maurice.
Oh my
great
goodness,
dude.
Paul! I mean,
dude.
we're the furthest thing from Florida fans, but I was watching Paul Maurice's, like, it was right before he was about to speak to Emily Kaplan, and someone tapped him on the shoulder and was like, "Hey, boss." And he's like, "Hold up, we got a visitor." And it was the cup, and they backed out. And that moment where he just looked at it and he lifted it up and he had his eyes closed, like he took it in. And I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it because
that was an incredible moment.
And then he turned back, and Emily Kaplan was like, "What'd you say to her?" And he's like, "She was hard to win. She was so hard to win and whatnot." And then he went over to do the Sportsnet interview, and he was talking about his parents back in somewhere in Canada right now. And he was like, "My dad grew up, and all he wanted to do was, he talked about the Stanley Cup all the time." And he's like, "Well, Dad, you get to know now that your name is on this thing next to your heroes." And he was like, Richard, and he went down all these great Montreal legends, and then he was like, and Maurice. And I was like, I got chills talking about it because it got me emotional watching it. It really did.
That was and there, I don't know if you saw it on Twitter. I'm sure you did. They did a mashup of all his post game comments for 24 hours. There's so many great stories that he told, and it was really, really good. It was riveting stuff to watch. And you guess, it just gives you the sense of how hard this trophy is to win. If you don't know it already, folks, it's the hardest trophy in sports. Nobody gives up more blood, guts, time, effort. That's my opinion in any sport to win a trophy, and that's the one. And that's why you always have ultimate respect, especially for the guys that have been in the game for so long, the Andrew Chucks, the Maurices that have to wait 18, 19 years. I mean, and that's just their professional time. They've been looking at that cup. It's probably the first memory they ever had in their life. At 3.5 years old, was like, "Ooh, what's that?"
Yeah, there's such a pageantry to the NHL. Like, even I don't know if you saw the little video they did before the game, where it was the guy. His name escapes me. The one that is the cup garter, kind of.
Oh, yeah.
And
Stanley.
they did that little package, and it was like, these gloves tell a story, and how he's never he guards the cup, and obviously he gives it to people, but he always wears the white gloves.
Yes.
And it's out of respect because he has not earned the right to touch that Stanley Cup. Like, the pageantry in it, and even something so subtle. The reason why the NHL celebration is the best is because when they win that finally, you know what Gary Bettman, the commissioner, doesn't do? He doesn't hand the trophy to the damn owner first. No, it goes to the captain. We get the money shot, or actually, no, ESPN missed the money shot because, of course, they did. And then they skate around with it, and the owner's like the last person to touch it. Like, there's just this pageantry to the Stanley Cup and the NHL playoffs. To me, no other sport touches, and that's why it was great. It was very 100%. Emotional. So, all right, I'll let you go. I know you
hit our last break and say thank you to all our great sponsors.
Absolutely, we got to get one more. We got to get one more spot in here. We'll cover our bases, but thank you for joining me here for a little bit to get your thoughts on everything. And you'll be back on Monday, right?
Yes, I'll be back. Well, I'll be back tomorrow.
Back tomorrow. There you go.
Yeah, back tomorrow with Tim Ham and all our group, and Chris Lugo from Bay Area Modern Medical Center. We'll grab him as well, and we'll have a great show tomorrow for you. Wrap it up, and we'll be on the Stamkos watch. Something could happen today.
All right, sounds good. Safe travels back.
Great job, Nick.
All right, see you.
See you, man.
All right, we'll hit that final break here, and we'll come back and we'll close things out here on a Thursday. Thank you, JP, so much. Even when he goes on vacation, he's always kind enough to join us to get some thoughts in. So hope you all enjoyed that. We'll be back here in just about 2 or 3 minutes here to wrap everything up here. Stay with us.
JP here for the Jeeves Law Group and my man Scott Jeeves. If you're going to hire an attorney, do you want some guy looking for a quick settlement and a quick buck, or do you want an attorney with some chops? Scott is a board-certified civil trial lawyer and a certified circuit court mediator. Been practicing in the Tampa Bay area for over 30 years. He is a peer-reviewed AV preeminent rated civil trial lawyer. They just don't hand out those classifications. He's been the lead class action counsel on many complex consumer protection cases and has handled hundreds of serious personal injury cases. He's dedicated his career to protecting injured victims and is committed to vigorously representing you. We're local, we're trusted, and we get results. Personal injury and personal attention. Call for a free case evaluation. That's 888-9-JEEVES. That's 888-9-JEEVES. The Jeeves Law Group.
All right, this is for all you guys who don't want to go to the gym and do 5,000 crunches. At Bay Area Modern Medical Center, you can get on the new True Body machine where you can reduce fat and tone up your muscle. It's like doing 54,000 crunches in just 15 minutes. Define your body as you see fit. True Body offers personalized muscle stimulation that delivers the equivalent of those 54,000 crunches in just 15 minutes. Just get in touch with them at Bay Area Modern Medical Center, BAMMC.com. Chris Lugo and the team over there will set you up on True Body and get amazing results. Non-invasive with comfortable and little to no pain and zero downtime. You can isolate and target those areas that you want to improve and treat multiple areas simultaneously. It's an amazing machine, so check it out at Bay Area Modern Medical Center, BAMMC.com.
JP here to ask the question, are you planning an event, meeting, or conference? If so, you'll want to call the designers and production professionals at Extravaganza Productions Incorporated. With over 35 years of experience in the events industry, designing and producing every type of small to large event, they can provide a huge resource for design ideas, audio, visual, sound, lighting, decor, and entertainment to turn your event into an incredible experience for the entire audience. Folks, I've worked up close and personal with this group at many national events and Tampa events, and they have unique capabilities that help you save time and money in the planning and execution of your next event. Don't delay. Call these pros today at 813-621-4700 or check out their website at extravaganzaproductions.com. Tell them JP sent you, and they'll provide a free initial consultation for your event. Extravaganza Productions, the best of the business.
Take your business or nonprofit to the next level with the power of video. Red House Streaming offers complete field production services. Our experience and expertise has you covered every step of the way wherever you want to go. From initial concept to final delivery, we'll handle it all and bring your vision to life. As your all-in-one production partner, we offer comprehensive marketing packages that not only showcase your brand, but amplify your reach. Contact Red House Streaming today.
Let's go! Right now. Back to the show on FanStream Sports.
All right, welcome back here. Just a few minutes left here on the Thursday JP Peterson Show. Hope you guys have enjoyed the conversation. Thank you guys for jumping in as well and always listening. And thanks to all of our advertisers, of course, for allowing us to continue to do this every single day. We just got a couple minutes here left, so we'll just look ahead to the night's proceedings. Where if you missed anything today, first segment got into my mid-season evaluation of the Rays and a little bit of some notes on Steven Stamkos, my feeling, the latest updates there. And obviously you just heard JP give his take as well. And a reminder, he'll be back tomorrow from his vacation to New Orleans, and he'll be back with Tim Ham. So be sure to tune into that, and I'll be back in on Monday. Rays are off tonight, but if you are a soccer fan like I am, or you just enjoy coming around for the big tournaments, keep in mind tonight, big game in the Copa America. The United States plays their second game in the group against Panama, and Panama dropped their first game to Uruguay. They've had the United States' number a little recently. I think they've won 2 of the last 3 meetings, so not going to be an easy game for the United States, but considering the fact that Uruguay is likely to probably beat Bolivia and go top of the group. United States, this is a big game for them because the last thing you want to do is go into that third game needing a win against a team like Uruguay. So definitely going to be tuned into that. And of course, the Euros, the round of 16 is set after the group stage came to an end yesterday. So lots of soccer going on, which of course I'm following. And again, the Rays back at it tomorrow night against the Washington Nationals for a 3-game set here at the Trop. So that'll be fun as well. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and commenting. Be sure to like and subscribe on the YouTube page. Listen in podcast form, of course, on Apple and Spotify. And like I said, tomorrow, JP will be back with Tim Ham, and I will see you guys on Monday with JP, hopefully breaking down some more updates from Steven Stamkos. Will he stay? Will he go? We will find out. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you on Monday.